Now, as we know, Scott Morrison's written a book. It's about his faith, but it's also about faith, the life of a Prime Minister. And he's given a couple of interviews. He gave one last night on Channel 7 about that emotional toll. We all know what came at him. James, in the end, you weren't a great fan of the former Prime Minister, fair to say. Mm-hmm. Right, good.
We have a mixed legacy.
Okay, got a mixed legacy.
Yeah.
However, there is something that I think is interesting to note, right, which is that we've all seen harsh political campaigns, but it did feel like a certain type of psychological warfare, and I don't know how any human being was going to be able to come up against that. But how do you feel about talking about it in the way that the former PM is?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, we know that the, there was that just utterly relentless campaign around Morrison in a way I don't think we've ever seen with a Prime Minister. I mean, there was some of it around Howard, but there was something about Morrison, and it was a kind of a dialectic between him and his enemies that they kind of fed off each other in a pretty interesting way. And, there was something about Scott Morrison, because he was so normal, it made his enemies absolutely furious. I mean, one of the greatest things you could say about Scott Morrison is his absolute genuine love for his wife, Jenny, and his two 100%. Daughters. And it's like this normal suburban existence, of course, is what the progressive left detests. And so they made him the focus of, they made him the scapegoat. He bore the sins of what they perceived as Australia and its failings because it's too, white picket fence and everything else.
Thank you, Cal.
God, you read a lot into
I do read a lot into
that's a lot.
Okay, but think about this, right? If Scott Morrison had walked out of a national cabinet meeting, gave a press conference about domestic violence, but then answered a question about whether the coach of his footy team should have been sacked, what would the reaction have been? What was it with Albo? Nothing. So that's the level about the psychological warfare. But again, Matt, as a person who takes on the left but also can feel what comes back, look, I fight hard, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm not somebody who plays the ball as hard as I can, and if occasionally the man cops it, that's the way it seems to be, because that's the way they've played it in the past. But what do you think about either the clarion call of we've gone too far, or that's just the way it is these days?
Well, look, politics is a contact sport, and we have an adversarial system, so it's always going to be tough, and I can't imagine what the pressures are like being at the top job. I didn't notice this, like many others. I didn't know Scott was going through this until he's revealed it. So I don't know what led to it, of course. But if I could just say one thing, I think we need to normalise the ability of Prime Ministers to have a holiday with their family. That was the most shocking thing to me over the last few years. I mean, sure, go after people on their policies, your disagreements with them on how the country should be run. But for God's sake, let someone have a holiday with their family, even if they want to go overseas. Like, we maybe should mandate that they go overseas. They should get out of the country. They could have a break. And can you imagine the pressure that put on his family when this is probably the first holiday they'd taken for many years together, and the pressure that came down him to leave his kids and his wife. And I found that distasteful at the time. I said that I got a big row on the ABC at the time with someone about it, but it was just brutal. And as I say, I don't know if that contributed anything, but maybe if we want these sort of things not to happen to our leaders, we should let them have a break from time to time.
Or in the same way, the UK Prime Minister has Chequers, the American President has Camp David, I don't know, some special ranch right out the back of Queensland where they can go and hang out.
He's got Kirribilli House, it's not bad.
I was going to say, and there's the one, okay, they've got enough houses. Bad. Thank you, lads, do appreciate it. We'll talk bigger issues, including rent and a whole bunch of things, at another time.